Hi everyone, so today we have a new video review, and as you can see in the name of this video, we are going to talk about the chronograph from Poljot International, and this is quite interesting watch. It's named Susdal, so it will be a limited edition from this brand, and we get an elegant styled watch, and as I said, it's a chrono, so that's why it will be interesting to see how these features are combined with the classic styling. And of course, what I have here is the final shape of this release, so you will get exactly the same stuff. If you order it from Poljot International website, it should be already available, so that's why I decided to take a closer look. And first, I suggest we start with unboxing. Even though I have the open box here, it's worth showing how the watch is supplied when you receive it. So as I said, this is a limited edition release, and here I'm holding in my hands the golden colored version, so there will be also two other colorways, and I think this one is the most suiting the classic styling of the dial. We will talk about it a bit more later, but I guess for other colors there will be also some separate fans who would prefer the certain combinations. Today we are talking about this particular type. As you can see, it comes in this nice cardboard box. You saw in the unboxing that it's not overly complicated packaging, but still quite nice, and I would say something what is expected to have with a good watch. So as for the chronograph here, the main point is that we are getting the manual winding chronograph in a somewhat classic sizing, so it's just 43 millimeters, and in my opinion this is a decent shape which will be suitable for average man's wrist. We'll also talk about this later, but first I would like to start with the dial because it makes the part of the image of this watch, and it's worth discussing what is actually placed here. So as I said, it's a 43 millimeters dial. I'm just looking at it, and it's really interesting finish because as you can see, we get the silver plated main part, and we also get the rose gold accents, which are looking quite nice. So in rose gold we get the indices, we get the large circle which is actually separating this rule from the central section, and we also get the hands in the rose gold. So as I was saying, this is a really classic appearance, and I think it will be timeless. So in case you are a fan of such combinations of the dial and overall styling, this is definitely something to check out. We also get few writings here, so I'm noting that we have here the Poljot International logo, of course, and we also get some information about the watch, that it's a mechanical watch. We have the movement on 22 jewels, and it of course made in Germany, so it's written here as well. And this is the chronograph, so we should have the subdials. For me it was interesting to see how they will fit it. So first of all we get the double dial styling, so there is no third dial, and we also get them on the 3 and 9 hour position, so that's why we do not have the digits for those marks, and moreover we have the digits 10 to 4 and 8 cut over by this placement of the subdials. And this is quite interesting cue, I would say, because some manufacturers would rather prefer to keep the large digits, but here we have something opposite, and it doesn't look off the way, but it's something what might be not up to everyone's taste. What is also omitted here, and I would say somewhat fan of it, that we do not have the date indicator here, so there is no clutter on this dial. It looks cleaner this way, especially considering that we have the seconds rule here on the outer edge. And if you would like to use the stopwatch, so this will be accompanied with movement of this thin hand here, and the only thing which I can note about it is that it's not accented by any color, any bright shade, so it's might be somewhat difficult to find it due to the thin shape and also the lack of the color, which will be contrasting with overall composition. But maybe it was done intentionally in order to keep the styling solid and to avoid any unnecessary bright elements, who knows. But also with this, it's worth noting that we do not have any luminescent layers here, so everything is pretty much classic, and even if you shine the UV light on it, nothing will be shining, so this is definitely not a watch for the dark conditions. This is more of a dress option for those who prefer to have more functions on their wrist. At the same time, we have the domed sapphire glass on the top. Why I'm mentioning on the top? Because we also have the glass on the rear side. Obviously this one is not the sapphire, but overall this domed shape actually adds to the classic elegant silhouette of this watch, and I think it's decent element which really plays together with the case shape. Overall, I think the legibility of this dial is good. We will talk more about this in the in-use section. Now I suggest we move on to the talk about the case of this watch. As you might have noticed from the close-ups and also from what I'm holding in my hands, we have the classic stainless steel case, and manufacturer here combined several finishes. So we have the polished wax, we have the brush finish on these edges of the case, which is really nice because the brush edges are only in the middle section, and we have the top and bottom in the mirror-like finish, so it gets as a sandwich on your wrist and it looks really good. And as I was saying, the shape of this watch is not that bulky, you can notice with your own eyes, and to usability adds that the legs are slightly bent, and this is really useful feature for such watch. We also get the glass back. It will be useful in order to see the movement, and because this is a chrono, so we get the large crown and we get two pushers which are used for the stopwatch function, obviously. On the crown we have the engraving of the Poljot International logo, but what is quite interesting is that the crown is large, okay? We have also nice engraving here which helps to keep the grip on this part, but to pick out this part is a bit complicated, and I am not sure why. Maybe because it's a bit of the smooth finish on this part, so in order to pick it out you have to grab it somehow with the nails. And also, of course, this is not a screw down part, so as you can guess, the water protection is not that huge here. It's only 5 atmospheres, so as I was saying before, this is definitely not a watch for a diver experience. And maybe it's worth taking out this watch from the pouch so that I can show you also this glass back. So as you can see, there is a movement visible, and Poljot International actually applied some finish in form of the Geneva stripes on some of the parts. Some of the elements of this movement are finished in golden color, so really interesting composition which will be visible only to you unless you decide to wear it upside down, obviously. And now I think it's worth talking about the movement itself while we are mentioning it. So as I was mentioning, we have the hand winding movement, which is rather unusual for the chronograph, but it also adds a bit of the experience with this watch, because basically you do not get the power reserve every day, you have to wind it manually. The movement of the crown is quite smooth, so I really like this, and the sound is not that loud, so maybe I can try to put it in front of the microphone. As you can see, it's not really pronounced. The watch itself, the movement is also not quite silent, and I'm just checking the power reserve. It should be 45 hours power reserve, and also 37 hours if you activate the stopwatch function, which is quite a reasonable number, I would say. For everyday use it should be more than enough. It's 2 days after all. And also, again, the experience of winding the watch manually, I think it's quite notable in modern watches, and this might be considered as an advantage in comparison with other automatic and quartz chronographs available for the same price. Now we can also talk about the strap. So the strap here is the croco leather strap. As you can see, this particular version is coming with a brown strap. We also have the chrome buckle here. Unfortunately, my sample is wrapped into the film. I decided not to take it because it's a mirror polishing, so it's quite easy to scratch it. But overall, the fitment of this strap is surprisingly good. I mean, I'm used to have the stiff croco straps, but here we have really nice and smooth finish, and maybe it's a time to place this watch on my wrist finally, so that you can see that it's actually not a problem to get it fitted on my average sized wrist, and also to close it properly. So overall, as I was saying, this shape is nicely fitting, and I think now it's time to talk about the overall usability of this watch. I already mentioned the size, it's 43mm, but the thickness is 14mm, which is rather on the reasonable side, I would say. And for everyday use, I think it's a good watch. You can note that it's slightly rising over my wrist, but that's due to this strap, because it's not yet, I would say, soft enough in order to be wrapping around the wrist. It comes with the constant usage of such straps, so it's I would say somewhat typical feature. Overall, I think it's a good dress watch, because here we have legible dial, we have also the chrono function, which is somewhat unusual for the dress watches, but at the same time it is supplied in a classic styling, in this elegant wrapping, which will not get old, and I think it looks as good as the watches from 60s and 70s which we are used to see, or which come to our mind when we are mentioning the 60s or 70s chronographs. And as for the power reserve, I know that some of you wrote that this is not a huge number, but in my opinion this is a reasonable number. It should be enough for everyday use, and of course this can be justified by the rear side in the clear. I think this movement is quite nicely finished, and this is something what is worth its price, because few of the rivals can actually offer the same styling, the same level of the finish on those parts. What somewhat let down this watch was the lack of the luminescent elements, and I think for chronograph it is quite important, at least on the hands and on the 12 mark, but here they decided to omit it. Maybe it is the right decision. Of course, I will be happy to hear your opinion, but well, this is my note about it. And also, I would say somewhat interesting quote-unquote design of the crown, because it is large, it's easy to handle, but it's really difficult to pull it out from the casing, so maybe it's worth doing the slight concave shape for the crown pull, and then it will be an easier experience. Overall, I would say that this is a really good offer for its price. In case you have the almost 900 euros, this is definitely a good choice to check if you are a fan of the classic styling. And as I was saying in the beginning, this will be a limited production, so only 300 pieces of each color. And in my opinion, this combination is the definite winner, but of course, feel free to write your opinion about these three watches, and it should be already available on Poljot International website. So in case you would like to get it, it can be also purchased in Helvetia webshop. And of course, feel free to write what you think about this dress chronograph. Write it in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next video review as usual. Thank you for joining me today, and bye.